Voice of the Creative Economy, Vincent Heeringa with Wammo on Kiwi.
Vincent Heeringa joining us from My Dialogue magazines and also NZ Marketing, stoppress.co.nz and Good as well. Vincent, good morning.
Good morning, Wammo. How are you?
Very well, very well. You've just highlighted to me off air just then that it's been a year since the world financial crisis, world financial meltdown became very apparent, I suppose, because it had been probably happening before then, but it was a year ago that it was.
Yeah, technically New Zealand had been in a recession since the previous January, but it really was in September when the markets took their big tumble, and as a business we noticed the advertising virtually fell off a cliff in the month of October last year. And we were kind of left wondering whether we actually had a business.
It was a funny time because there was all that turmoil going on, but there was so much optimism as well, especially with the American elections around the corner, and it looked like Obama was going to take it out. We
had our own elections as well, so
yeah.
We had a kind of perfect storm of indecision. Really, we had two major elections for New Zealand. Then we had the markets, doing their best to lose as much money as they could, the collapse of what looked like the entire banking system, and a huge amount of uncertainty around what did the future of the economy, global economy, look like. Then you had Christmas looming and holidays. So the whole thing from a business person's point of view was disastrous. We just couldn't get anyone to make any kind of business commitment to us, and advertising and sales and deals. We were looking at each other every day, and there was a moment in November when literally the phone didn't ring for a couple of hours, which is that's pretty amazing for a business,
Yeah.
So it's interesting now to reflect on some of the numbers now year on year have come out, and it's pretty sobering, Wammo, the decline that we have been in as in particular in my sector, in the media business.
Has it been punctuated by Bill English's announcement last week that we've now got the biggest deficit this country has ever seen?
Yeah, well, that's a result of the kind of remedial measures that governments all around the world have had to take to offset, and I guess history will be the judge of those guys, whether the Ben Bernanke's and the Bill Englishes of this world, and the Gordon Browns, whether their huge spending spree to hold up the banking sector has been a wise move. But you got to say that all the factors were pointing to a kind of 1929, 1930 type collapse, but they staved it off with a huge, absolutely massive intervention.
So, and in that year, we seem to have hit a bottom, and now there's talk of us coming out of it. But I mean, what are the numbers saying? I mean, how do we know?
Well, I don't know. Economists are very good at looking backwards and not forwards. So I just was scribbling down some of the numbers. There's in the magazine industry, for instance, there is 1 million in New Zealand, 1 million less copies, just over 1 million fewer magazines sold in the last year.
Wow.
Which is, that's quite a big number, isn't it, for a small country?
Yeah.
And that equates to just over $1 million. Oh, no, it's not quite right. Sorry, I was just looking at my figures here. So it's $1 million fewer copies of magazines sold, which is an enormous drop. It's around about an 11% drop across the board. And it's interesting where those ones have been hit. It's magazines, I suppose, are part of that kind of luxury purchase. You don't need a magazine to feed the kids. So things like TV Guide, New Idea, Home and Garden, those kind of magazines have been hit pretty severely as people have seen them as a discretionary purchase.
Local titles?
All local titles, yeah. And it's kind of interesting that within that there are little other dynamics. For instance, magazines around food, entertaining, gardening, they have actually had quite a bounce back and have grown. And it kind of implies that people are staying home, they're cooking, they're planting gardens, they're getting back to being kind of resourceful. So magazines like Good, which is our magazine, and Healthy Food Guide, they've actually grown in this time as people want to take more control over their lives, I guess. There's a really interesting... we talked last time about Condé Nast, the publisher of Vanity Fair and many other quite highfalutin, highbrow titles in the States.
Yeah. And
they closed Gourmet magazine, which is like the Vogue of food. It's been going since 1941. Well, some interesting numbers come out from Bain & Co., which is a big consulting firm in the States, and they've studied the luxury sector, which, we're talking about jewellery, cars, cosmetics, fashion, which in their calculations is about €167 billion business. Well, that's taken just over an 8% drop in total. But particularly quite interesting where the biggest drop has been in fashion. Again, where you get that kind of luxury purchase item is just been parked for the moment while people shop more sensibly, I suppose.
It's interesting from the fashion side of things. From my perspective, it looked like some of the fashion houses talked themselves down in this time. A lot of the talk was from them as opposed to from customers saying that they weren't going to be spending money on clothes. The talk seemed to come from the fashion houses themselves. Oh, this is a time for us to tighten our belt. We're not going to turn up to some of these larger fashion events around the world. We're going to reduce the size of the goodie bags and that kind of stuff. The talk. Some of it seemed to. Yeah.
Part of that could be a reaction to people perceiving fashion as a frivolous thing, and they need to be seen to be responsible. Like the Bain report from Bain & Co. They talk about luxury shame, how people are embarrassed to be, being seen buying flash cars and haute couture clothes, particularly at a time when there's so much suffering going on around the world. And interestingly, the online purchasing of luxury items is up 20%. But what they point to there is they're suggesting that there's still purchasing going on, but it's in the privacy of your own home.
Yeah, right. We know can people see you splashing out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and other signs of the time, Wammo, that we're in recessionary times. A call centre in Sydney has just been exposed for following staff into the toilets with a stopwatch to make sure that they do, in fact, do their ablutions within 3 minutes, as the company policy states. This is a public sector organisation in the health area handling claims to their national health scheme. So, these are tough times. You're at the top of the scale. But you can't buy your Gucci and your Dolce & Gabbana, and also if you're a call centre operator, you're being monitored in the loo.
Goodness me, gosh, you'd want to go and smack your boss in the head, wouldn't you?
Well, it wasn't that long ago people were installing spy cams into toilets just to make sure that the staff weren't wasting their time with snorting coke and things.
It was a completely different time, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, Vincent, thanks so much.
It's a pleasure, Wammo.
Vincent Heeringa from Ideologue, Good, NZ Marketing, stoppress.co.nz.